All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Beyond Spray and Pray 1000. I am Spray and Pray 1000. First of all, before we even get into the topics or anything, I want to wish you a happy Easter. I hope things are going well for you and you're enjoying yourself in this time, these very trying times that we're in. Just now that that's out the way. Second of all, I want to also apologize. I misnumbered the last episode, which was 124, as 123 for the number in the top left. That was an oversight on my part because the Pokemon podcast, I did kind of offset the numbers, and now that I'm actually displaying them on the screen, it is just a little bit, it's a little thing that I just did miss, and I didn't want to make that up. I also did that before, long ago, with a podcast name as opposed to a podcast number. But in any event, there's not really too much that's happening in the grand scheme of things for video games. The first big thing that happened this week is that, and I guess I probably should also put the date. Today is April 4th, 2021. It's Easter Sunday. I actually passed out, which is why I'm doing this actually rather later in the day. I had some good food. I ate enough, and then I relaxed for a nice fine sleep session. So it's a little bit later in the day than I would usually do stuff. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. This podcast probably will be up pretty much right away, because there's not really much to edit or much to change or do differently. So I'm actually going to keep Amarat as a background because I actually think it's fitting, it's soothing. But besides that, the first thing that happened was that Blizzard removed the ability for you to buy 30-day game time from the Battle.net store. Now you can only purchase game time in 60-day or 2-month increments. Previously, you could buy 30, 60, and I'm not too sure about the last two. I think it's 15 and 180. By the time I found this, it was already removed. Now, just to clarify to people, this did not affect subscription prices. So subscription prices have not changed. So if you still want to pay for 1 month, it's still 15. If you want to pay for, I think, 3, it's still whatever that is. And if you want to pay for 6, it's still, I think, $77 or something. Like they let you save a couple dollars here and there. Really what this does is it just removes a little bit of player agency, but for the most part, it doesn't affect too much about WoW's subscription price. But it's really one of those questionable things that really just makes me wonder, well, why would they remove the ability for someone to gain or lose time in 30 days? To be able to just dive in for 1 month. You don't have to sub. And yeah, you're right. You could sub and then you could unsub from WoW just by virtue of hopping in, playing, buying 1 month subscription and then immediately unsubscribing. I think it's, as weird as this is to say, I think it's a little bit of both consolidation, but also something that just to try to trip people up who might forget about a subscription. And that's not the first. I've had at least 2 other people tell me this, is that it's for people who buy and then they kind of forget to unsubscribe and kind of forget to remove it. You kind of end up staying subscribed because that's the only way to really dip in for one. You pretty much have to do it right away. And obviously you could totally just say, well, you subscribed and you forgot, that's on you, which is true. But also, unsubscribing from WoW isn't just as simple as saying, push a button, I don't want to do this anymore. It's a little bit more of a hoop. It's not like a bigger hoop. Like, the basic gist of it is that you have to go into web browser, Battle.net on the web browser, and then do it from there. And I don't know, it feels like very weird de-incentivization. It doesn't affect too much, but I feel like losing that kind of agency. You would think like 30 and 60 would be good time day increments for you to buy, right? Like if you just want to buy 30 days only and exclusively, it's kind of just like a straightforward thing that you could just do. It's like, okay, here you go, boom, 1 month, that's all you need. And then it's a one-time purchase, it's not a subscription, so you don't have to worry about later, randomly out of nowhere you get hit with some random time card or something or other. But beyond that, nothing else really changed too much, but it does feel like something that Blizzard intentionally did just to kind of really, I don't want to say mess with people, but consolidate things down in a way that ultimately is not user friendly. It technically takes away options from users, but it doesn't really affect things too much in the long run. And I'm always a fan of consumer agency. That's kind of one of my bigger things. If I actually look, I think the biggest thing about it is that it, like, game time is used for gifting. Like, you can gift it to people, I think, on your friends list. Like, if you really enjoy them, playing with them or something, you know, you could gift them whatever. In fact, if I actually go on to BattleNet, go to the shop, go to World of Warcraft. I like that I can actually test this in real time. Can I even capture my BattleNet? I probably shouldn't. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. Game time, 60 days. They used to offer it for more, and they removed it. Basically, I think it's to get more people onto subscriptions, and obviously when you put people on auto-renewing subscriptions, you generally run the risk of having them trip up over something and forgetting about stuff. So that's more or less basically the whole of it. It's also, and just for the record, Game Time gives you, what is it, 60 days access to WoW and WoW Classic. And then we all know that WoW Classic is coming out later this year. Or not WoW Classic, I'm sorry. Burning Crusade Classic, which in my opinion will be something very cool to check out and just look back into. Now, the next thing that happened, which was kind of an April Fool's joke, but ultimately was kind of hilarious in the long run, is our good friends at Kotaku, once again, up and at 'em as usual. They fell for a fake Halo Infinite a fake Halo Infinite delay post. There was a Halo 3, or I'm sorry, a very official looking Halo Twitter account that said that Halo Infinite, which is Microsoft's next iteration of the Halo franchise, and it's very, very long awaited, had been delayed. And Kotaku and at least two other gaming news sites falsely reported on this, saying that it's official and it's actually something that happened, when a quick search of the actual Google post, or I'm sorry, the actual Twitter post, will reveal that Halo does not tweet out from that brand label. It doesn't, or Twitter handle, I'm sorry. And the official Halo account, which is, I believe, just at Halo, did not actually go ahead and say anything like that. So they didn't actually research it at all, because the official Halo is at Halo. So what they have here, in fact, can I even show it? Oh God, I don't know if I'll be able to find the fake one. Where is Opera Pro? What's the name of this Opera browser? I forget. Opera GX, that's the one. If I bring it up on the screen real quick. Oh, where are you? There you go. Sometimes this is a little weird. If I bring this up on the screen, what we end up getting is, as you can see, they have, oh, can you even see my mouse? Here we go. As you can see, they have the little check mark here, the little frilly check mark to show that they're the official Halo brand at halo.com, or, not halo.com, but, halo.xbox.com and all this other stuff. We might be able to see here somewhere. Yeah, here we go. For the latest official news on Halo Infinite, be sure to follow at Halo. That's us right here on Twitter. They actually responded to them because Kotaku got. And yeah, probably doing this is not a very great idea. As Twitter is NSFW, that's for sure. We might not be able to see it too much, because I think they might have removed it, because they got basically. And I thought it was hilarious that even like a few minutes of just a few seconds to see what the official Halo Twitter says actually proves that it wasn't real. And that's the one thing I got, is that if I go back to Halo, because I'm not going to find their post on it, the fake account had like a little moon symbol instead of the Twitter check mark. And because of that, that's how I knew right away that it was fake. It also had typos in it, which is not something I'd expect them to have when they're announcing a delay in their game. And I think people are at this point so, I don't want to say thirsty, but they're definitely looking forward to Halo so much. And at the moment, it's nowhere to be found, that people are basically expecting more bad stuff to happen, right? Like, we're in a negative feedback loop for Halo, right? Like, the longer it takes for Halo 6 to come out, or I'm sorry, Halo Infinite to come out, Just the more people expect bad stuff to happen, so then it can be delayed, and then they feel bad about it. They don't really know if or when it's coming out, and it is kind of bad that it's not out yet. You know, with Microsoft putting basically their prime studio behind it, is pretty bad that it's not coming out at all. But I digress. That's more... I thought it was a pretty good April Fool's prank, because it happened on like March 29th or March 30th, and immediately I was like, that is actually hilarious. And Googling is illegal, apparently. But anyway, Kotaku also reported that single-player games are making a comeback. You might have seen that in there. Basically, the way that this kind of boiled down to is that they more or less talk... And in fact, I'm going to bring up the article, because it's very rare that I do article dissection on the podcast anymore. So this article was posted on April 3rd, 2021. Quite simply just titled, single-player games are finally making a comeback, sort of. And now, if you're like me, and you play video games, and you talk about them a lot, and you're generally aware of what games come out, even if you don't necessarily play them, you know, you're just aware that they are a real product that people engage in and buy, the first thing in your head is probably, what the fuck, when did they leave? And that's a fair point. So anyway... Once upon a time, Shigeru Miyamoto famously said, yeah, everyone quotes this, and it's a statement, okay, modern games are never finished, bad games become good games become bad, games of all stripes add social components, microtransactions, etc. It's a podcast bait. This is exactly the point that I want to make about this. Now, if you scroll up, it does say this, right? So admittedly, it does say this. But what you see when you browse on other websites is not, hey, podcast, you know, like in quotations, podcast, single player games are making a comeback. You see this. And this almost kind of feels like maybe there was some, you know, shifting announcement in the industry. It's not really anything. And in fact, to really scroll down for it, and they do mention EA a lot, right? EA a lot is thrown out. They specifically cite, and I know to scroll through the whole article, but whatever. It's especially interesting because EA saying back in 2010 that single-player games were finished. You actually believed Electronic Arts on anything that they said? You really did? You believed Valve, who don't even make video games, right? I mean, this is also kind of true. Half-Life Alyx came and went. I genuinely think that people already forget that it actually happened. There was a literal Half-Life game released last year, but it doesn't really appeal to the mainstream Half-Life crowd, other than the fact that it has a character and some now canon story. It doesn't play like a real Half-Life game. As I told my friend who plays in VR, Half-Life is kind of like the derivative 90s fast-paced shooter. I think Half-Life 2 a little more so. You know, you see people play Doom. It's to use the F word, it's fast, but compared to Doom 3 at least. But did you actually really believe EA in 2010 saying this? The same year that they released Mass Effect 2? Really? Like literally people consider Mass Effect 2 to be one of the biggest games of all time? Red Dead Redemption 2 also came out this year, I'd like to remind you. Like Assassin's Creed Brotherhood? I mean, damn near Assassin's Creed has put out a game every year since 2010, other than 2016 and I think 2019. So, like, what? Dragon Age? Literally, Dragon Age 2 was, what, 2010, 2011? And this is just off the top of my head. Where did single-player games ever go? If you're talking about EA, yeah. But I think really the bigger core of it is that they talk about things like, as you see, Anthem and Fallout 76 and games like that have gone through so many iterations and so many failed like presentations, and other games are now more free to play than anything else. And Cyberpunk also got thrown out. But there's tons of single player games. I mean, fuck's sake, the last 4 Game of the Years from the game show were single player games. It's like God of War, Red Dead 2 didn't win that year, lost to God of War, but God of War, was it just God of War 2018? Fucking Sekiro, Last of Us 2. Like, there have been non-stop single-player games. They never went anywhere. And even if you want to discount games like, I don't know, Call of Duty or other games, right? Like, we're not going to say, oh, well, it has a single player mode. I mean, no, legit games that you cannot even play with someone else. Doom Eternal, Dark Souls, literally Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne. All these different games have come out since then. And even without talking remakes, I mean, I would argue that in 2010, we probably had some of the most... where is it? Yeah, in 2010, I would even argue that we have some of the most games for single player that I've ever seen. And in fact, I could think of a couple of them off the top of my head, like Bayonetta and Darksiders came out in 2010. Alan Wake, Heavy Rain. Like literally, I don't get that point at all. And that's not even me just trying to be contrarian. I mean, just look at the fucking roster of video games that came out in 2010. Halo... Oh, you can't even see that far. I'm sorry. Maybe it would just be better if we went on the Google... or on the Wikipedia list. Oh, hey, look! They literally have... And I'm going to scroll the screen over. They literally have a list of all the big fucking games that came out this year that were so popular. Mario Galaxy 2, Mass Effect 2, Red Dead... for both of them. Mass Effect 2 again. StarCraft 2, Wings of Liberty. I guess you could argue that's a multiplayer game. God of War 3, which was, I think, 2009, so maybe that's not totally fair. Here we go. Bayonetta, Darksiders. No one cares about Assassin's Creed Discovery. That is even forgotten by the people who play it. Scroll down. Mass Effect 2, literally one of the biggest games of the year. One of the game everyone says is like the best game ever in that series, right? Like the game that people cite is like the basis for so many games. Deadly Premonition. There was a SpongeBob game? What the hell, man? Oh my god. Bad Company 2. That doesn't count. There's Pokemon somewhere. Yeah, here we go. Pokemon, Heart Gold, Soul Silver. Primarily single player games. Yakuza 3, really? Okay, cool. I'm just giving a very broad scrolling here. Splinter Cell Conviction, another big line game. And this is just 1 year, by the way. I'm not going to go through every year for the last decade in a year. I don't count Prince of Persia: Forgotten Sins. That game kind of wasn't that great. Peace Walker. Again, games with maybe multiplayer components to it, but at the same time, they are primarily single-player games. I don't think anyone would say Metal Gear is necessarily a complete online game, except for maybe, like, Survive. Not to mention Phantom Pain has come out since then, right? Like, all the 3 Assassin's Creed free-roaming games. Like, I don't see how you could say and believe... Like, because I'm really pivoting the basis of the article off of this. Because if we look for the rest of this is a podcast bump here at the bottom. The ultimate example of literally everything we talked about is Cyberpunk, right? Like, a better name for this article would be, the games that come out and are just complete shit, just piles of shit that have nothing to do with anything, right? Like Anthem, your Fallout 76, you could do Final Fantasy 1.0, you could do, what's the other one that everyone always fucking talks about? Did I say Anthem? Anthem 76, Cyberpunk, Fallout, I think I said 76 twice. Final Fantasy 4, No Man's Sky, right? Like, there's like at least 2 handfuls of games that have come out and been completely disappointing, underwhelming. Like, yeah, Mass Effect and Andromeda and Anthem might both be EA titles, but that's more of an EA problem than it is. And like, I'll be honest with you, when you have a title like this, and I read this, and I guess we'll read through it just so I'm not being an asshole, but I read something like this, I don't want to listen to 53 minutes of this at all. Just purely based off of mistitling it this poorly. Let's see. To begin, travel back to last year. Think about the biggest games, the one people talked about the most. Yeah, like Doom Eternal. I guess Spider-Man, sure. Doom Eternal, right? Ghost of Tsushima, another big single-player game that they cucked out over The Last of Us 2. the big games are single player games. They're big because we talk about them, or because of the story or whatever, and the story around them being made. The biggest games are always your Call of Duties and other service-based games. We don't talk about them because they're always there doing shit. This sounds like literally the inverse of what they're trying to say. I feel like you would say, like, well, what are the biggest games? They're the multiplayer games, and then we don't talk about the single player games as much because they're just there. I feel like the point is almost reversed. The games you mentioned are just major publishers' attempts at service elements. Like back in the day, you had Grand Theft Auto coming out as a box game without a multiplayer mode. Then they added one and it took on a life of its own. Oh yeah, GTA 5 came out, but without a multiplayer mode for like at least half a year in 2013. That's another one that happened. And you could maybe say Rockstar gave up after that and just did online. But then they had Red Dead 2. So, I mean, like, that's not totally true either. You should note about games like Last of Us and Cyberpunk is they don't have this contrived service element. Cyberpunk was eventually going to do one. Yeah, and that's also the other news, is that Cyberpunk is apparently not doing some form of online. Which, in my opinion, I didn't even know that they were going to do online for Cyberpunk 2077. Because, one, I didn't really follow it too much until a week before it came out. And two, just because in general it seemed like a single player game. And then three, because everything that happened with it was just a massive pile of shit. So in my mind, like that was a definitively single player game, given that apparently CD Projekt Red pretty much only makes single player games. Fallen Order is pretty much EA's like only single player title recently, and it did well, right? Like everyone I talk to loves it. And they say it's like one of the best Star Wars games because it's made by, I think, Respawn. And I don't really need to explain that Respawn is pretty much like the only thing good to come out of EA in almost like a decade since they killed everything else. And that's, you know, whenever they get fucked over by EA, I think that's going to be hilarious, but also really tragic. Besides that, they talk about Dragon Age, where we're going to have single player. Dragon Age is going to be single player in part because Fallen Order sold really well, and also in part because Anthem bombed. This feels like an EA podcast, right? Like I feel like this title would be fixed if you put like EA single player games are making a comeback. I feel like excluding the EA portion it just makes this incredibly clickbaity. Because this is not at all what it's about. There have been tons of single-player games. There's tons I even forgot about, right? I'm not even trying to say small, medium-level games. I'm talking big profile games. What's coming out? I'm going to skip through this. Where the fuck is it? Why is it like this? God, this page sucks. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah, now we get these nice, colorful banners, which is what I like. Let me ask you a question. What comes out in March? What comes out in May? Is there anything maybe you might be considering? Maybe, I don't know, something that everyone talks about all the time. It's coming out to basically anything with a fucking screen. You know, shit like that. Also Near Replicant, but I digress here. That's not the point. The point is that there are tons of single player games that come out. They never went anywhere. They never left. And that was something that people were concerned about. You know, when you see things like GTA 5 online and you see things like whatever, and I probably should give an example, right? When you see things like GTA 5 online and, right, the free battle royales like Apex, Warzone, right, Fortnite, you begin to wonder, well, you might get an inkling of like, well, how viable are single player games? And the real question becomes, how viable are they, right? Like if you see the biggest earning games, oh shit, do I still have that from last podcast? Oh, here we go. We're gonna get some cross podcast bullshit going on. I gotta go back to the falsely titled podcast 123, and I'll tell you. Let's see. There you go. I'm gonna cite this again. That's how good of a but if we go back to the old podcast that I did even just a couple days ago, or what was it? Was it a week ago exactly? The biggest selling games were like Red Dead Online, or were like GTA 5 Online. It's like Warzone. It's all these multiplayer based games, you know. Even World of Warcraft is still up there. So it's kind of like, well, how viable can single player games be? And for EA doubled down on the idea that single player games are just not worth it. But here's the thing. it's not that single player games aren't worth it. It's that EA wanted to make money off of things like online passes. EA wanted to make money off of things like microtransactions and jump packs to boost you through the levels if you want to just get to something really quick. They were doing the stuff that Activision does now long before even Call of Duty did it. Call of Duty, as much as people shit on it, never did a season pass. They never did a online pass, not once. They never had an online pass for a Call of Duty game, just because they sell so much. They don't need to limit their player base. You know, EA were the tinfoil wearing salesmen who believed that used games were going to destroy their business model, or at least they wanted you to believe that, and they wanted people to think that. When in actuality, they just made shit products and wanted people to buy a ton of it. And when it didn't sell well, they axed a whole bunch of shit. Not even the stuff that was getting necessarily boycotted or just not bought. And I think that's one of the biggest things about EA is that EA themselves are just really, 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 really shitty. And I think that it's kind of easy to forget that. Or I don't even think it is easy to forget that at this point. So, like I said, when you see all the things EA has done to basically destroy their single-player game experiences over the last couple of years, it's very hard for me to listen to you as you say your next point, which is that EA said single-player games were done. Well, of course they said single-player games were done. Why? Because that's the type of games that they don't make a lot of money off of. You buy a single-player game, congratulations. You paid $60, you generally don't pay anymore. You buy a multiplayer game and you get people playing with their friends, you get people competing against each other, and they get mad that they got killed by a certain type of gun or whatever. Then they want to maybe buy stuff. And Activision specifically wants you to do that with the weird matchmaking setups that they do, where they put you in lobbies with people who are better than you to try to incentivize you to get stomped and then want to buy shit to level the playing field through money. You have all these other games that let you buy loot boxes and other stuff to dress your character up and all these other weird, crazy things. And in my opinion, it's like beyond fake what they did. They manufactured this idea that single player games are no longer viable, but at the same time that they're doing this, they're not making any single player games. Like in 2010 they released arguably what some people would consider to be the best single player game of all time, followed up by, I don't know when Dragon Age 2 came out. It's probably something worth at least looking up. Let's see, when did Dragon Age 2 come out? 2011. So literally the next year they released another one. And then, I don't know, I can't think of all the EA games off the top of my head. 2011 was also Dead Space 2. 2014 was Dragon Age Inquisition. Nice. 2014 was also Dragon Age Inquisition. Let me make sure I didn't spill anything. 2014 was Dragon Age Inquisition. 2016 was Mirror's Edge Catalyst. 2019 was Fallen Order. And there's like maybe one more somewhere. Andromeda was 2016. And I think there's a couple more somewhere in there. Dead Space 3 was 2013, right? Like, you got all these single-player games coming out. Now, EA routinely ruins their own games. I don't think that is indicative of almost any other company on the planet. But I agree. The Iron Man genre is dead. They had an Iron Man segment in Dead Space, and it was cool. And then they tried to put it in 3, and they put in all these other things, and it was okay, I guess. But really, it's the idea that Anthem basically wanted to do what Xenoblade X did, but failed in almost every level. And that's the sad part. By the way, Xenoblade Chronicles came out in 2010, as well as Xenoblade X in 2015, and Xenoblade 2 in 2017. But that's like the biggest tragedy, right? Is that like you have games like literally Nintendo niche titles do what Anthem wants to do better than Anthem. The only problem with it is that Xenoblade X is a very complicated game. It's a very hard game to understand because they really don't hold your hand at all in that game. You just kind of got to figure shit out yourself in that game, which can be fun. And I think it's a very rewarding game when you play it well. And I've enjoyed all my hours on it, even when I get my ass kicked and when I do dumb shit. But at the same time, I do think that like there is a certain level that like even EA couldn't replicate that, you know? And I mean, I've covered Anthem at this point 1,000 times over, and I'm going to cover it again. But holy fucking shit, man. Does Anthem really just... I don't know. But I would say that out of all the other things that they do... Oh, actually, before I get rid of this, They actually even say it right here, right? There you go. I guess a lot of developers are also like, even if we do it poorly, we all have we have all these examples of other service games that were able to right the ship. And EA was like, we are EA. We have 11 billion infinity dollars. We could do it too, but it just didn't work out. And actually, I agree to this point. This is incredibly true. I think that a lot of games now, they'll release broken and they'll try to fucking A Realm Reborn their shit. And what I don't think that they don't realize is that A Realm Reborn literally took years. It took a completely different team headed by someone completely different to fix that game. And I'll be honest with you, 2.0 was good in 2013, but 2.0 has a lot of problems in and of itself, and a lot of those problems persisted until the various expansions came out and further refined the game. And I like, if I had to grade the 14 devs on their ability to change and improve things, at some points I'd have to give them like maybe a B minus. At some points I gotta give them a B plus. They're like about a B. They'll do most of the stuff that they need to do. They're not perfect. They're not great. Sometimes I think they don't experiment enough when they have the opportunity and the chance to, because they're afraid of, I don't know, beyond, on destabilizing the literal game code and making the game crash. I think they're afraid of, possibly upsetting balance. So they'd rather stuff stay as it is until the next expansion or the next big patch halfway through the expansion than change it like on a week by week basis or anything like that. And I understand that, like, obviously there's way more that goes into this and trying to keep it balanced, but for a long period of time, a lot of stuff in 14 was not even close to being balanced. And ironically, now we kind of have balance, but it came at the cost of a lot of class identity and other things. That's neither here nor there. But the amount of stuff that they had to do to literally yank this game out of whatever shithole it was in 1.0 in 2010, to the point they had to literally crash a meteor into the game world and start it over almost from scratch, is basically a colossal undertaking. And I genuinely respect them a lot for it, because I think most other companies would have just axed it, called it a day, and just said, yeah, fuck it, we're just going to take an L here. And for a brand like Final Fantasy, that would be pretty bad. That's pretty low. And they were able to do it. No Man's Sky and then Sean Murray's team, through literal sheer determination, were able to add in more or less everything that they promised over time, and then some. And they are still going to this day. They never once shirked their duty to deliver on the stuff that people wanted and that they offered to people. And a couple of things had to be made here and there, but I mean, for the most part, they have completely gone above and beyond. And that's not something that most game studios can do. That's not something that most game studios want to do. They want to drop off a big name product on day one. 1 billion people buy it, like Warzone is free, I'm sorry. Like Call of Duty or GTA Online or Red Dead Online or whatever the fuck. And they just want people to go from there and sustain it. But what they don't realize is that there needs to be infrastructure. There needs to be a fan base that not only wants to buy it, but believes in it, that it'll be around at some point in the future, and then they could continue playing it. Like, say what you will, and this is especially true that I know of, say what you will about MMOs, but most of the big MMOs have some degree of security. They know that they're not going to disappear anytime in the near future. World of Warcraft is still getting expansions and updates, even though it's almost fundamentally a different game from where it started. Final Fantasy XIV is still going on 8 years, and they have already said at least another 5 years of stuff, and probably once that comes, they'll still do it again and again and again. And the reason I cite that is because people said that WoW would be done ages ago. Every couple of years, when WoW hits a real low point, people will turn around and say, well, it looks like the train is finally over. It looks like they're not going to be able to pump anything out. They'll just keep it online and they'll just leech it from people. And every single time they prove it wrong. These games are not going anywhere. I mean, EA also fucking makes the Titanic. And that's not really talked about much because it's literally just a Star Wars BioWare game. But, like, that still is a thing that happens. Like, people still do that. It still exists. So, in general, what I'm trying to say is that, like, these games need to have security. They need to have longevity. They need to have people who believe in the product and the things that are going to happen to it. They need to have a lot of things. And if they don't have that, then you can't really reboot the fucking game. Even if you have it, well, we know that the EA has a ton of money. The problem is that they did not have the staff that were willing to figure out what the fuck this game was supposed to be in the first place. And that is a debacle in and of itself. The same thing with Avengers, although they didn't make necessarily a game that doesn't have identity, it just didn't really have much to do from what I heard. And I know I talked a lot about this because it's a very in-depth topic. There's definitely a lot more to it than, oh, maybe single-player games are coming back, because single-player games never left. The biggest problem is that companies really just wanted to make money off of multiplayer games, and multiplayer games that had a lot to them, and specifically multiplayer games with egregious or predatory money-making practices, where they could, leash stuff out of you like online passes, and as more specifically loot boxes, which is like now the cursed word. Now no one really likes to do them because it's just something that has such a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, because when you put them in, you kind of toe the line between pay to win and like mobile game levels, and that's not really something you want out of a $60 soon to possibly be $70 price tag experience. You don't want to say to people, hey, pay $70, all right, cool, now buy more loot boxes. And especially, like, let's think about it from a Battlefield perspective, right? You buy Battlefield 6, hypothetically, right? It's coming out tomorrow. You buy Battlefield 6, assuming you just get the base version, right? You don't get, like, the $80 custom skin and extra gun unlocks and whatever version. You don't get, like, the $100, here's the special, behind-the-scenes cut bullshit, and the $300 super mega, you are the commander, whatever edition, right? All that stuff, you get the $60, $70 game. It could be $70, you don't know. All right, here you go. You want to level up? Here's some bronze battle passes you could buy. Or some bronze battle packs and some silver battle packs and some gold battle packs. Remember when they did this with Battlefront 2? Same exact shit. And what else was it? Can't even remember what else there was with it. You want to buy your own server? Well, after a while, they're going to offer up the ability for you to buy EA servers, and you could rent them. It's rent, basically. And that's how you get your custom playlists and all this stuff. You want to buy jet unlocks, because everyone who plays and uses jets pretty much has everything, and you have nothing. Well, that's going to be another $10, $15, right? And they keep getting you with this stuff over and over and over. And I mean, you don't need it, right? But it works. People buy it. And the same thing happens with Assassin's Creed. And I always tell people, I love the Assassin's Creed games. I respect Ubisoft. I think that they do a good job with them now. But by fuck, I would never buy anything from their online store. I would never. You don't even need it. You could play the whole game and get everything you need to beat the game on normal. And I don't think that the only people hitting up that store are playing on, like, extreme or whatever the fuck it is. I don't even know what the difficulty settings are. I think most people play on normal. Or maybe even easy. And therefore you don't need it. But that's just my opinion. I'd like to save you some money. I nothing against it. It's your money, though. But yeah, I think there's a lot more to it than just, oh, they're kind of coming back. And I would love to know if, like, I feel like just the title doesn't really suit this. And I know I've talked a lot more about this than I need to. But that's because there's not really anything else to fucking talk about that happened this week. Now, I guess what I will say, because I'm not going to sit here and just shit on these guys. Well, Kotaku I could shit on. I didn't really do anything this fucking week. But I'm not going to sit here and just shit on game journalist sites. I'll actually shout out IGN for doing something pretty cool. I just found out about this today, and it's unfortunate that I could not support this myself. I would, and I do. But I literally can't click support on the website because it hit the goal already without me even being aware of it. IGN actually did something pretty cool by Matthew Adler. I'm going to put him on screen just so you know. No one. There is a Lego Metroid set. Basically, it talks more about the Ridley that was unveiled with it. But basically, there was a guy who goes by the name of El Diego. Or I just say El Diego because that's kind of what it is. It's started a Metroid Samus gunship project in 2020, and it's been getting different updates, and it has different variants of the ship, and basically Lego Ideas, as they say here, which is perfect, I scrolled to it, is a website where master builders can submit their ideas, and if 10,000 people support the project, it will be reviewed by a panel of Lego experts, and potentially be made into a real set. At any given time, there can be hundreds of pop culture inspired submissions, and do they have the link to his thing? They might not. I have it in here somewhere. Let's see. It's somewhere, hold on. Because I want to show this off because this is really cool. And the reason why people are talking about this is because there is official Lego Mario. So, if I scroll up here, and I did comment on this, I really do think, I really do want it to be a thing that happens. Now, I did say I hope he releases the instructions and part requirements. I didn't see, but if you load more, he talks about how he won't release it because clone brands would steal it, and it relies on unavailable parts that only the LEGO Group has the tools to produce properly. So that's unfortunate. I don't know if I could edit my comment. I don't think I can, but oh well, too bad. Basically, it originally started as the Metroid Prime 2, the Super Metroid, and the Metroid 2 Return of Samus gunship, where this is like the traditional Metroid gunship. Like, everyone knows this. But what really gets good, if we go to the updates, I believe, is that they showed off the Metroid Prime 3 gunship at 88%, which is 8,800 supporters, which is pretty cool. And as a huge Metroid fan, I see this and I'm like, oh my god, this is amazing. Now, obviously, it's definitely a proof of concept, right? But it definitely has the look, you know, it definitely has the feel of it. Obviously, I feel like if it were to go to like the official, like hypothetically, if they greenlit it and Nintendo was like, yeah, sure, make a Metroid thing, we don't care. Then I feel like they would, you know, patch up some of this, right? They would make it look more like it. But I mean, fuck, man, to think that someone was able to figure all this out, right, is truly amazing. And I genuinely think that that's really cool. And obviously, here's the Ridley. Ridley has a couple different wings. They have Mecha Ridley, Omega Ridley. All the different Ridleys are here. This is the Metroid Prime 1, and Metroid Hunter's gunship is also a thing in this. This shit is really cool, man. And I genuinely like that they also have the Metroid storage. And I'd buy a lot of these. I'd buy 3 because I want to have each one of the gunship configurations. I think that that would be so cool. And I really do hope it happens. I really do hope that this somehow slips through the cracks into our reality. Because this is actually really cool. So here's what he outlined as like the different things that he could add. He already hit it. He already long since hit it. This actually finished earlier this year. It hit 10,000 supporters, which is actually pretty cool. And because of that, I'm not logged in on Incognito, but it already achieved support. So now we just got to wait for this to wrap up and see what happens. But this is really cool, and I really do appreciate that IGN shouted this out, because I genuinely hope that this happens. And I, as a huge fan of Metroid, I'm glad that I think that this article really helped give it some attention and you know, boost it to the mainstream. There are also some YouTube videos. But man, I am really happy that this actually happened. And I do want to give credit where credit is due. If this really did help out, and I do believe it did, then, and if it possibly gets built because of it, we have them to thank. And that's it. I genuinely like that, and I really respect them for that. You could talk about 6 Days in Fallujah. That's like the last thing that I fucking have. Basically, the long story short about 6 Days in Fallujah is that people believe that something terrible is going to happen when it comes out. I'm trying not to look too much into the game. Basically, it made a bunch of journalists mad, and they had a bunch of game developers and people in the industry signing a petition so that it doesn't get released. The game was originally supposed to be released a long time ago, and then it was dropped because of some reason I'm not really too sure about. If I look it up real quick. Premise of the game was subject in controversy in 2009, with questions raised as to its appropriateness, given the fact that the true events the game is based on were recent at the time. It was originally to be published by Konami. However, in April 2009, a spokesman informed the Associated Press that Konami was no longer publishing the game due to the controversy surrounding it. The game was originally slated for a 2010 release, but was canceled due to controversy. The game was put on hold until 2016 after its original studio, Atomic Games, went bankrupt in 2011. Now it's being developed at Highwire Games, consisting of former Halo and Destiny devs. Published by Victoria, 6 Days in Fallujah is expected to be released on PC and consoles in late 2021. Now, all I know is it made a bunch of people mad, right? Like, I just read off the Wikipedia, if you're curious. I just know a bunch of people are like ridiculously trying to stop this game from coming out. And it almost took me back to the 90s a little bit, where like everything was like some satanic game and some ridiculousness. And honestly, if it comes out, I'll play it. I'll buy it just because it makes people mad, just because it pisses people off. I don't care if it's a good game or a bad game. I literally bought Senran Kagura specifically because of that. And I didn't like it. I thought it was fucking shit. But, yeah, I really do think that they are trying to do a Spec Ops The Line twist without trying, or I'm sorry, with making it realistic, with having it follow a real story. And I think that's pretty interesting that they were able to fully throw it together. Now, if it has Halo and Destiny game developers, is it an FPS game? It is. It's a first-person shooter game. Well, I'll see it. It's not like Sony's putting out tactical shooters anymore like SOCOM. You know, Medal of Honor's fucking dead. Who do we have to blame for that? I could wonder. The same people that murdered single-player games also murdered a bunch of multiplayer games to make Battlefield better. There's not a lot of tactical first-person shooters anymore. I would hesitate to even call Call of Duty anything remotely to that at all, even back when it was like more focused on the single-player game. So I'm interested in this game. I see it raised a lot of fucking stink. You have people, major people in the game industry trying to legitimately stop this game from coming out. You have people saying it'll breed a new generation of mass shooters. It's really just because right now we live in very politically charged times to the point that people are kind of on both ends going off the fucking deep end. And honestly, it's kind of ridiculousness. And I don't think I need to explain that to the average person. I'll be honest with you. I don't think I really need to explain that, you know, art is art. And as much as I don't like a lot of games, I think that games are art in their own way. I don't think that necessarily, like I understand the argument people make. A lot of games are just, you can make the argument that every game is art, but obviously, like, a lot of things are art. If I drew a couple squiggles on a piece of paper, technically that's art. Now, are you going to hang it in you know, next to the Mona Lisa or something? No. Why? Because it's not that important. It's whatever. It's generic. And a lot of games do kind of fit that sort of bar. A lot of games are just pumped out just because they want to make some fucking money, and not always for the soul of it. But then you have games, I feel, that are made for the soul of it. And regardless of whether or not a game is made for, you know, soul reasons or money or both, because you can do both, despite what people fucking think, it deserves to exist. And 6 Days in Fallujah deserves to exist from everything I've seen so far, without going so hard in the fucking paint for it. And that's really all I have to say about it. I guess I'll see what happens later this year. For all I know, it'll be an average fucking game. Maybe even worse. Maybe it'll be a shit fucking game. And these dudes literally raised hell over nothing. They literally raised hell over nothing. Just like with Hatred. Remember when Hatred was supposed... No one even remembers what the fuck Hatred is anymore. Remember when Hatred was supposed to, like, normalize school shooting and general fucking mass shootings, and that didn't happen at all? Yeah, me either. But they claimed it. People were literally reeing into orbit that was the case. But yeah, that's pretty much all. I don't really have much to say about it. But to list it, I'm not even going to read all this stuff. Where is it? The list of people. You might actually recognize at least one of these fucking names is prominent voice actress Jennifer Hale. And you might recognize some of the rest of the other things that people are from. You got people from Respawn. You have IGN, Gotham Knights lead game designer, and all these other people. Ubisoft narrative designer, Insomniac Games, Diablo 4. It's a lot of people that actually signed a petition to get rid of this game and to stop it from being released. So that's fun. But besides that, I mean, didn't these people also overlook the Modern Warfare, what was it, the Highway of Death shit in Modern Warfare 2019? I could only fucking imagine. But I digress. That's why there's not really even much to talk about here. It's a game that's coming out that people are mad at. And they're not mad at necessarily shit in the game, things the game doesn't do that it should. They're just mad at the game's existence, like basically pulling Fox News on Mass Effect 1 all over again, where they're like it's an attack on something. I don't know. Oh, Jesus. I'm cursed now. Okay. I'm better. Alright. That's really all I have to talk about. The PlayStation Store is still preparing to shut down. So definitely if you have the time, money, and resources, please, please, please grab it. They shut down the online version, which was something I did not know about. So the only way to download these games is off of the console version. You don't have much time left. Do not wait until the last day to try to download like 100 gigabytes of save games. You will be sorely disappointed when you find out that the servers and the service gets shut off right in the middle of you downloading a game that you can't get else. Oh, actually, shit, I didn't put this in the podcast. Oh, this is why I need to put stuff in the podcast when I find it. Hold on, I want to see if I could find this first before I leave. Give me a minute, I'm sorry. Fuck. Basically, I'm never gonna find this now. I'm never gonna find it. But, a lot of PlayStation 3 games are going to become exclusive to Xbox or be lost. It's about 2,000 games will have their status of availability altered, including games like Resident Evil Code Veronica X will become a Xbox exclusive overnight. Oh, fuck me. I cannot believe I did not save this. That is awful of me. Let's see if I can find it. It was on... I'm really sad that I did not save this. I need to dump this stuff immediately in the podcast doc. And I always forget to do it. Let's see. Am I there? If I can't find it in a minute, I'm going to be out of here. And that's a big title, too, by the way. That was the game that arguably should have got the fucking save shit. Or should have gotten the remake treatment. Unfortunately, I don't know. Capcom does not like to talk about it at all. Yeah, they genuinely don't. Which is a tragedy. Oh, yeah. Star Wars, the Skywalker saga got delayed. They don't have a new date for when it's coming out. If it's getting delayed at April, it's probably not coming out at the end of the year. Not to shit on their parade, but that's probably not a thing that's going to happen. It might be a Christmas launch now. I'd be surprised if it was any earlier. Wow, this must have been really far back there, because I can't even find it. I've been scrolling for like a few minutes here. Aha! I found it. The analysis comes from videogameschronicle.com, so I'm going to source them for this and also throw this up real quick. 2,000 digital-only games will disappear when the PlayStation closes its stores. Many titles will be lost for good, and others will become Xbox exclusives, VGC analysis shows. Over 2,000 digital-only games will no longer be available for purchase when Sony closes the PSP, PS Vita, and PS3 stores this summer, VGC analysis has revealed. Although users will still be able to re-download their previous purchases for the foreseeable future, from July 2nd, it will be no longer possible to buy games on the PS3 or PSP online marketplaces, and come August 27th, the same will apply to the Vita too. Of the games set to disappear from the formats, the vast majority are available on other platforms such as older PlayStation consoles or PC. However, around 138 games will essentially become lost forever once the store is closed. Oh wow, it got updated today on Easter. The 138 PlayStation games will no longer be available for purchase in any form when Sony closes it. Yeah, so they confirmed it. 138 PlayStation games will be gone for good. Do we know what they are? Oh yeah, the 139 games. Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. So here's the breakdown. Basically, as you can see, there's a bunch of stuff that will either go back to being exclusive on older consoles or will not be ported forward. Now, as a disclaimer, because I know a lot of people are going to get... Someone out there will be like, well, most of these games don't really matter. You're right. A lot of these games, shovelware, forgettable, no one knows what the fuck they are, right? But a lot of these games are probably like games people do care about, games people actually would probably want to play later down the line. Based on trophy information, about 730 PlayStation 3 games were only released digitally. These have been delisted, so I expect the total number of games to be a little bit lower. There are also a total of 336 PS2 classics. If you want to play a PS2 game, homie, and you don't own a PS2, this is like the next best thing that you're able to do. Because the backwards compatibility for the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 3 is basically like nothing. And it's actually kind of sad that they were, you know, literally one of the most popular consoles of all time, and it's so hard to play like any of their original games like outside of original hardware. No backwards compatibility, nothing. This won't be an issue for anyone with the early PS3 model. Yeah, if it works. I have a friend who has the PS3 model and it works, but not the disc laser. Like, unfortunately, that's the problem. Is like it needs to work. The number of digital-only PSP games is relatively low because digital distribution was still in its infancy. There is, however, the PlayStation Minis, which incidentally will no longer have any legal way to receive new games once the store closes. All the minis will be gone. They will be a complete extinction. So here you go. Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories. PS2 game will no longer be available to buy. Let's see. The game's lost forever. We'll talk about that in a minute. It includes Infamous Festival of Blood. That's not a no-name game. That's a game that actually ties into a series that at one point was really popping. Oh, by the way, another single-player game. Another single-player game that was popping off in 2011, 2012, I think it was. Okay. And they go on to talk about the Xbox brand. As soon as the stores close, a number of games that were previously multi-format will automatically become Xbox console exclusives. The likes of Beyond Good and Evil HD, Rayman 3 HD, Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon, Castlevania Lords of Shadow, Mirror of Fate HD, Soul Calibur 2 HD Online. I can't imagine many people playing this, to be fair. And here we go, Resident Evil Code Veronica X, which is also HD. And Lara Croft, The Guardian of Light, and both Bionic Commando games will soon only be available to purchase on Microsoft's consoles. The biggest third-party company affected by this was Sega, who went through a spell of releasing HD versions of a number of its past games on Xbox Live Arcade and PSN. Almost all of these will become Xbox exclusives overnight. Daytona, here we go. Jet Set Radio, Nights into Dreams, both Sonic Adventure games, etc., etc. Oh shit, Space Channel 5, big ups. Isn't just Xbox owners. Yeah, Resident Evil Darkside and Umbrella Chronicles will go back to being Wii exclusives, by the way. That's a thing that will happen. So really the only thing that they could say is like, well, maybe PlayStation Now, but then obviously PlayStation Now is just you streaming it off of a server somewhere. So, you know, it doesn't really count in my opinion. And it's, I mean, obviously it's not that great. So the eShop, they end this article with the eShop maybe closing down at some point. Yeah, it's a lot of games. I think that that's a pretty sizable number of games that will just be gone or become exclusive to Xbox, which isn't the end of it. I mean, Xbox backwards compatibility is honestly some of the best we've ever seen, but it is a little sad and a little tragic. And, you know, it's nice for Sony, this company with literally like 20 years of video games that they could draw upon, 30 years at this point, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, fuck it. I don't care. We didn't even think about it. We don't think that far ahead. Buy the PS5, except that you can't because scalpers still take it. So I'm a little salty at them for that. Where is the list? I just want to look at the list really quickly. Yeah. They argued in a column that the industry needs to increase its efforts for preserving video games. Here we go. So here's the long list. I'm just going to briefly scroll through it. I recommend you pause it. Let's see, PS3 games. Anything I recognize off the top of my head that I would actually miss. Infamous Festival of Blood, there it is. I saw Tales, I got scared for a minute. Spelunker HD, I remember when this came out. A couple of these I've heard of. Like I said, a lot of these are probably no names, which is still fine. Wait, did we skip PSP? Hey look, that's a pretty big game. I was looking for Crisis Core, but this is like the next best thing. Where would you play Crisis Core then? I have no clue. You know what? I think it's physical, to be fair. I think they're counting only the digital versions. There's not a ton of Vita games, honestly. And I mean, while it's cool that a lot of games, like, you know, the game I bought the Vita for was Sword Art Online Hollow Fragment. It's cool that that has gotten like a re-release and it's gotten a better patch for the shitty, awful English that they put in the original Day 1 version. But yeah, these are all the games that will just cease to exist. They will not be available to buy anywhere. And somewhere in here, they talked about like legally being able to play stuff. I don't know where it is. Somewhere. Developers are still in the process of making Vita games, and now, without warning, have to decide whether to rush them out or abandon them. That's rough. I actually feel for them. The PS Vita is not... Yeah, it's only 9, and they're killing it. They're literally killing the store. They're not even porting shit, right? Like, making the Vita, like, an all-in-one console for, like, PSP and Minis, which, you know, they could arguably... Here we go. Ultimately, the ramifications of the closures have potential to be large. While it's fair to say that the PS3, Vita, and PSP digital stores haven't exactly been selling games in high quantities, the fact that repositories like these, and before that the DSi Shop and Wii Shop channel, have started closing down could be a worrying sign for the future of legal game preservation. Yeah, because you want to know what's going to happen? Someone out there is going to have all this shit ripped, and they're just going to make an emulator, and it's just going to cost Sony money. Or rather, it's going to deduct funds that they would have otherwise made. And then they're going to get salty about it and shut that shit down. So there just is no legal way to play these games. And that's just what it's ultimately going to be, is that someone out there is going to make it. They're either not going to care, in which case you have to, you know, illegitimately play these games. But I mean, like I said, if there's no way to get it, then yeah, I think that, you know, I don't really blame people for doing that, for finding emulators and playing games on them. If there's no legal way to do it, or if the legal way is not reasonable anymore, like, I don't know, owning literal, like, 20-year-old hardware to play, like, an old-school game, because there's no other way for you to play it, I kind of feel for you, right, you know? Like, the only way to play Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg is to literally have it physically. That's just one hypothetical thing. Now, imagine a game that came out during the PS1 era. You know, imagine a game that was a fucking exclusive. Here we go. I think that's is that Crisis Core right here? Maybe, I have no clue. So yeah, it's pretty tragic. I'm going to talk about this basically every podcast because I want it to get known. I should probably talk about it at the start of every podcast so people know. Yeah, so all PS3 models can play PS1 games, so you'll be able to play the physical versions, but it's the PS2 games that are going to suffer, really. The PS2 classics need to be really emptied out. Again, my biggest complaint about the fucking Vita is that they never put Spyro 1, 2, and 3 on it in America. You have to actually hack the Vita to play it, and that's kind of what I wanted to play on the Vita as well. Because they put it on the European store, but not the American store. Why? Fuck if I know. Whatever, man. So yeah, I think that's about all I have. I'm glad that I was able to fish. Oh, by the way, I also found the Halo thing. This was the fake Halo thing, as you can see here. That is, I don't even know what the fuck that is. That is like the number 7, I guess, in a white bubble. That is most certainly not a check mark, but I could, like, they fell for it. Here you go, March 31st, 2021. They fell hook, line, and sinker for it. Let's see, there's a typo in here somewhere. Here you go. No, not untenable. Deliver in Fear Factor, you understand me? Shared Halo Infinite come a long way. But somewhere in here, I have no clue. I think there was like a typo somewhere in here without me actually reading the whole thing. But yeah, they took it. They bit this bait hook, line, and fucking sinker. And it was actually hilarious because for about 30 seconds I was like, wow, that is really fucking sad. But then I took one look at this and I'm like, I don't remember that being the Halo tag. And then I looked at this and I'm like, that's not a fucking check mark. It literally, in about 30 seconds of Googling, they, like, because you would think that at the minimum, you get the source tweet and literally paste it right in the fucking article, right? And be like, yeah, by the way, here's the actual tweet from the official thing. It's not just me showing a picture. And, yeah, that didn't happen. They got him. They got him good. It was a good one. This was a good April Fool's joke. I appreciate it, whoever out there did that. See, I'm allowed to be wrong because I don't do this for anything. This is me this is basically a shit posting hour. But I'm done now because I'm actually going to go clock out and do something else. But thank you. I hope you all had a good Easter. Take it easy. And I will see you guys on the next rodeo, episode 126. If I don't have anything in a week, I'm just not going to make a podcast. I mean, I'll determine it at the time, I guess. If something cool happens, maybe. But if not, then probably not. So, in any event, take it easy. I had a fun time. I always like talking about video games, almost more so than playing them. So, big ups.